Welcome back to the Trainers Podcast, episode 2 for this mandate. In this episode, we will talk about expectations, the ones that we set with others when we collaborate, and also how we manage our own. My name is Nasia, I will be your host for today. A little bit about me is that I've been in EESTEC for 5 years now, in some local and international positions, and I've been in training team for 2.5 years, doing mostly SSAs, some local and online sessions. And the reason expectations is an important topic for me is because it's been the most fascinating part of working with others, and also something that I find difficult to do. So it's worth talking about. And today we have with us Oskar. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course. Hi, I'm Oskar. I'm from Kraków, and I've been in EESTEC for, I think, around 7 years at this point. I've been a trainer since 2021. Where I graduated in Tuzla with the 13th generation. Throughout that time, I did some operational events. The most important ones would be two T4Ts in Belgrade and in Novi Sad, so both of them the Serbian ones. And yeah, when it comes to expectations, I don't know if it's a specifically important topic to me, but I know that it's specifically important for every single collaboration we are part of. Not only collaboration, but also any kind of relationship we are part of, I guess, as well. The ability to state them out loud, the ability to stick to them or maybe reevaluate when needed. So I think it's quite a broad topic to talk about, and we'll see what we can get out of it, I guess.
Thank you. Yeah, it is also true. It's important in our interpersonal relationships. It can just be harder to implement because we're more invested into them. So in order to define a bit what we mean by expectations, we're going to start with an example that you're familiar with, which is an interaction that we had 2 months ago when you hosted me. You were my host in Krakow, but I was at the Congress. You were. And so I will present my side of the story. Basically, I had just arrived the day before. You had communicated to me that, I will be waking up at this time. I will be leaving the house at this time. When you're done with your daily activities, you told me, I can communicate to you and we will see how to get back home. And I was like, great, perfect. So then the next morning, I had no alarm. You woke me up at a specific time. I was like, why is he waking me up? Sure, I will tell you goodbye as you go to work. Thank you for waking me up. And then finally, I managed to get out of bed and just sit down on my laptop, do a little bit of browsing, something random. And as I look up from my laptop, I just see you standing in the corner looking at me very quietly, but staring at me intensely, I guess, too.
It was becoming more and more intense as the time progressed, I would say.
And I was just looking at my flight back home, I was nothing of purpose of substance. And I was like, why are you looking at me? What did I do? and basically, yeah, you had in mind that we would actually live together, live home together. Whereas in my mind, I thought, most people, I would assume, leave the house and then don't lock on the way out. So I would just leave whenever, and we
don't do that here.
Yeah.
A very important piece of this story is that there was one key for us to have, and when we go out, I probably should have the key afterwards. So I was waiting for Nasia to leave first. And I think we didn't catch ourselves somewhere in the middle of that conversation properly. Yes. So you know how it is. Part of it was due to the fact that I was like, what else am I supposed to say? For her to realize that, that we should go. I was trying to smuggle the meaning of that with some, okay, so we should maybe go soon or something like that. But I was not really direct as well, which I think didn't help either way. But yes, in the end we managed to realize what's happening. Yes, I think it also didn't help that at the time you didn't have your phone, but it's another story, I think.
It is. It makes everything more complicated. But I think it's also worth pointing out that in this occasion we both had the best intentions. We just didn't manage to
very important, yeah.
align on what the timeline would look like. Let's say we didn't talk about it.
Yeah, best intentions being there. So I think none of this being malicious to each other in any way. But from the other side, I think the root cause of that situation was a simple miscommunication, which probably has quite some impact on expectations in various circumstances.
So, like, when you've had a lot of collaborations, as you've said, you've been in training team for a while, but also in EESTEC for even more. When you start a collaboration, or even a relationship in life, but however you find more easy to articulate, how do you normally go about setting expectations with others? Or how should you maybe?
Yeah, let's start with that, and then let's go to the reality of how things happen, right? So the thing that I remember from every single start of collaborations in EESTEC, and that is not only from training team, but also from the first collaborations that I've had locally. So I don't know, the first thing that I had, the first gig being the PR coordinator of SSA locally. So every single thing, we've been doing that here, but we are also doing that internationally. Every single beginning of that was sharing expectations, where we were either going for some round table or there was some time to prepare for that and then share expectations. And if you think about it, especially, I think in the beginning, this is quite cool for you, like from the perspective of just looking at it. It's quite cool for you. You are new to those things because you are a young student. Great, we are sharing expectations. We are connecting in some way. It's super nice. And I think at some point later in the process, when you went through that, I don't know, dozen of times after being in the association for way longer than you should have, you are approaching this in a way of, okay, this is just another thing to tick. I'm just saying the same thing every single time, or I've been seeing this being said every single time the same way. So let's just go through that, and then we will start working on stuff. And I think that's kind of a dangerous thing. I believe that every single time you are sharing expectations, you should come to it with this kind of beginner's mindset, you could say. Consider it something fresh and try to reflect about it each time. I think that's ideally how it should work, because it's easy to get lost in that routine. I believe that it's another thing. There's probably someone in the team that I work with. We were good enough, so let's just go through it. Yeah. And I think, so you asked me about what's the best way to do it, and I think I'm going the opposite way, like what not to do, so not to get into that routine. Yeah. But maybe we can swap it into saying to approach it with a fresh mind each time, and really think, what are the things that trigger you? What are the things that you consider certain red flags, hot buttons, whatever that is? And what is the situation you are in at this current moment? Because the expectations that are important to you that you shared in some collaboration 2 years ago may be not as relevant. Probably some of them are, but maybe some of them are not as relevant anymore, just because you changed, circumstances changed, people changed. So there's a lot of nuance to it now that I think of it.
Yeah. I mean, I would start to finding, like, I think my process was kind of the opposite of, like, when I start, not of doing it, but, like, throughout my EESTEC experiences and path. I think at the beginning I was like, why are we doing this? What is the purpose of this? Not because I found it unnecessary, but I wasn't really able to articulate an expectation. I didn't really know what I wanted out of a collaborator until I saw it not happen. And then I was like, oh, okay, that is not something everyone does. And then I started being able to piece together better what it is that I want to express as a desire of how we work. Yeah, so gradually my expectations become, I think, clearer. At the beginning it was just, I don't know, like be nice to each other, which I think is
I think at the beginning you also don't know really what to expect, at least from collaborations, because you don't know what are the things and little crises you can go through, or conflicts or things like that. So you go through that with a really template model of expectations, clear communication, respect for each other, which are very basic, but at the same time they are super important. So it's also important not to disregard them in a way that they're obvious.
But they also they also mean different things to different people. Like, you can say them, but sometimes it's nice also elaborating, like, okay, what does clear communication mean to you? Or they can say frequent communication. Okay, how frequent?
Yes, I think that a big role here is the one of facilitator of this process. It doesn't have to be someone external, but at least someone that would take care of the part of you elaborating properly what that means for you. So that's probably important as well. And I wanted to add here as well is that change that you go through as that you go through as you collaborate with different people. For example, I think this was kind of the case with my collaborations, that the first ones that I've had, they were super successful just because the people that I've been working with, they were like on a pretty similar mindset, approach to work, approach to people, approach to whatever the task we have. And so it was easy to go through it because we were on the same page every time. And then if you start with such collaborations and then you go into one that is maybe more average in a way, that you're not a perfect A team, then you would come into that new collaboration with the expectation that those people will be exactly working the same way as the ones that you worked with previously. So maybe another addition to why those are important to reevaluate each time.
And I think it's also something that happens when transitioning from local positions to international, like almost always. Like locally you have a specific way of working, or at least the people you've worked with the most. There is a specific culture, and then you go on an international position and people come from such different cultures, let's say locally, that they might have as teams. And you all do things that have worked for you, but now you have to kind of combine them together, and it can be challenging to verbalize even, because you take so many things for granted.
That's one thing. And then how those expectations are, how tough it is to meet them because of the fact that you are in an online environment. That's a whole different story. That's
why we do bonding and chill meetings.
Yeah.
So
we try to find substitutes,
so we can deal with the frustrations. No. It's nice. It's a different skill set, I think. You're learning to work with people from different backgrounds.
Definitely. And important for future, I think, career parts as well, where you collaborate with people online very often.
I was thinking when talking about expectations that we also, like, when we start something, there's sometimes subsections depending how deep you want to go into expectations from one another, expectations from ourselves, from the project outcome. I don't know, which ones do you think would be most important to outline? Like, expectations from ourselves sometimes are good to communicate with others when we're a close-knit team, like a board of some sort, because it helps explain where we're coming from sometimes. Or expectation from the project, like I expect it to go this way, or these are the most important parts of it for me. I don't know. If you were to rank or see all of those aspects of what is more worth communicating at the beginning, let's say.
Okay, just to clarify, the thing that you mentioned by expectation from ourselves, you mean that when I start a collaboration with someone, with a team, let's say, I will state also what I expect from myself, from Oskar, yes?
Yeah,
not from the others.
Sometimes we do that, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's also important too, because it gives you the reflection into what kind of a person you will be in the team. Otherwise, if we skip this part, we would just, have those expectations from the project that are like, let's gather 500 participants, whatever. Expectations from others where, I am there in the team and you have to be like this and you have to be like that in order to please how I would like to exactly how I would like to work in the project. And I think actually, if you look at it, it would be important to start from yourself, just like with everything else. If you think about, emotional intelligence, right? First, the self-awareness part comes there that you are able to use in order to be better at the awareness of others. I think we could try to map it in a way to expectations that I am joining this team, I will be working on that project, I'm joining this group, whatever, and I have a certain role there to play. And I know what people, maybe not yet, but I may have a rough idea of what people would expect of me based on the role that I'm having. And then I can confront that with what I'm expecting from myself based off how I know that I work, based on how my situation looks at the moment. So I think, I don't know if I can rank anything, if one is more important than other. Probably that's one of those questions that you have to say, it depends. But I'd say that if I was to start with something, perhaps this one would be the most important to start with, the ones for myself. So what am I bringing here? How will I be able to support the team, support the people that are there? And what I would like to achieve here, like my personal goal, not only the goal of the project, but we are not joining teams we are to some extent I'm joining an SSA team in order to make great SSA. Perfect. But I also have some intrinsic motivation towards that because I want to feel in some way, right? And I think expectations, apart from the fact that they build you as a team, they give you this opportunity to think about it for yourself, and maybe they set you up for this path that you just started. So that's an important one. I think starting with the ones from yourself are that's super important.
I was thinking, I haven't done it that much, but it is like, it requires some level of openness, I guess, and some level of trust in the team that, I think similar to what you said, it shows that just as I'm going to hold you accountable to some specific expectation, like this is what I ask of you, this is what I want you to hold me accountable, let's say, to, or to, you know what I mean?
And then you have
if you manage to do that, it can be really helpful also for self-development, being able to have a team that mirrors back to you whether you're actually showing up to your expectations of yourself.
Exactly. And that's really nicely combines to the perspective of you give expectations from yourself and also what you can do for others. I think there's always, not always, but often this pattern of how to run those first meetings where what I expect from others and what others can expect from me. So, right, like this is a bit of a twist. But together it gives you this kind of perspective of, this is a pool of expectations that others have towards me. This is the one that I have towards myself. We put them together. Probably some things overlap, but we have a way, 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 way bigger picture than if we skipped one of those, right?
And we also can better map out maybe what kind of responsibilities each person can have, etc. Like when you describe what you can expect of me, it's basically also what types of things I like to do, what kind of roles I could play within the team.
Yeah, certainly.
So, okay. Would you like to maybe go over like a random list of basic expectations just in case someone hasn't ever done the process before, and so we can grasp from something more tangible when we talk about them?
Okay, we could do that. We could brainstorm on that together and leave with some base things that we both think that are important. I think, should we start with the ones from ourselves? So, and we can then go through the others as well. I think the really important one is, and I will not say a specific expectation, but like things to think of that I think are important, is that first of all, what I am bringing here as a person and what kind of a team player am I? I think that's a very important one. If I had maybe some interactions with groups where I was delivering something, even if it wasn't an EESTEC project, what was I bringing to the table? When people could count on me, and when will they be able to count on me in this new project that I am? So that's super important, I think, to start with this interaction with others, right? And what I'm bringing to the table there. And then I guess any things that I would like to achieve throughout those months, and how those expectations are coming to the needs that I've had by joining this project. So I guess kind of a self-reflective thing. I don't know. What would you add here?
I mostly had in mind like also things we ask of others, like even the elementary things that are worth outlining.
Okay.
I am struggling to find them. I think most of the time we mostly say, be punctual, be reliable, which we break down be reliable into other things. Like, if you can't do something, please inform us timely about it so that someone else can do it. Or, I don't know, if we need something to be done by a certain date, please do it by then or inform accordingly so we can shift at least the date.
Yeah.
Take initiative is something we sometimes say. It depends on the team, but it's
Proactivity,
nice
initiative,
to be
right?
proactive and take initiative. Yeah. When we do training sessions, we always tell the participants be kind to one another and respectful of each other's opinions. I think it's something we kind of take for granted when we form teams, but we do also want that and mean that to create an environment where people try and maybe fail, but still try.
Yeah. I think the approach that you would have, whatever that would be, towards work versus bonding is important here as well. Whatever you have towards us, just to voice it in one way or another. Because, for example, for me, whenever I'm on some project, whether that is an event or a long-running one, I believe that I am sometimes how to say it? I am emphasizing the part of work maybe too much sometimes. And when you do that, or even if you go through the other side, so you are like more for the people than to actually achieve something there, it's easy to just assume that others have the same approach. And I've had my letdowns in a way in the past where I thought that, I'm working a lot. I'm working every evening on that project. And I would assume, I would expect that everybody will bring the same amount of pure work to the table just because for me, this is important. While there are so many other components of it, just like teamwork, team building, support, empathy in whatever struggles we go through, that they are also important components. And every person brings something else there, and whatever you expect from others have to be said in the beginning, because how could they know that you expect for you to move fast in this project, for example, if you didn't say that, right? So the balance between this and how you see it, I think if everybody in the team says that, then we can come up with either some solutions or some middle ground, or we would say, great, we're on the same page, let's go.
So like in the example you gave where you were working a lot on the project, was it an issue of you expected everyone else to also do the same and they didn't? Or you don't have to give an example or be specific about it if you want to, just to make it a bit more clear on what I would say, that others play other roles.
I mean, of course, everybody has their role to play when it comes to the work that they put, but we also often say that if someone cannot work on something at a certain point, we can fill in and do the things for others, right? Which is normal. And sometimes the fact that I am very work oriented could work against us in a team, just because I would expect that others would do more, or the fact that if someone didn't deliver something because something happened, especially if that wasn't informed, if I was expecting that we would not have such problems and I didn't say that, then that's a problem, right? So, So in this way, let's say.
It is interesting also the balance you brought up of like more work-oriented people or people-oriented people. I don't know. But like what you want the outcome to be, or what you focus more your attention and I guess also invest emotionally in. It can be, I mean, not a misalignment, but I think you can have the same outcome and two people be very differently satisfied with it.
Exactly.
Because of it. Yeah.
Because for one person, maybe the metrics that you get are very important. So we finished that event and we filled all of those expectations we had towards the project, while the others are there to grow, to meet with people, to have an amazing time that they will cherish for the years to come. And if you have two people at the exactly the opposite side of the spectrum, let's say, and that is not said in the beginning that this is how we approach those projects, then you are in for a unavoidable conflict, I think, which maybe is good, because conflicts are good. We should remember that. But I think that's important to state it from the beginning, because then it's important. Then it's easier to maybe handle such conflicts afterwards.
Yeah. I think also with conflicts, like I sometimes when I talk about it or try to teach someone about it, it's like the person bringing up the existence of the conflict is not the person causing the conflict most of the time. It's just the person wanting to talk about it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's
definitely you have to work
a
through it.
very important role.
Yeah. I think you also bring up, or kind of make a segue into the topic of like, sometimes at the beginning you don't necessarily know what to point out or what things you fundamentally see differently from others so that you can discreetly point them out as differences in what you want. So sometimes you might have to adjust your expectations or recommunicate them mid collaboration.
Yes.
Has that ever happened to you, or how do you think it should be approached if not?
It did happen, and I'm grateful that it happened, because otherwise it's tough. If expectations are unmet and you just go along with the unmet expectations, not speaking out about that, not trying to address it in any way because reasons, whatever reasons there might be, well, that's significantly worse than trying to make it better, right? I think that's an obvious statement that we could all agree with, no matter what approach we have towards conflict resolution and or talking through expectations. And you asked if that happened, then you asked how do I see it happening, right? Something like that. Okay.
I guess if it hasn't, like, how do you approach it? But if it has, I guess, what is the process of bringing it up and actually resolving it into something productive?
I think that, so there are two things that I would mention here. First of them is to, from the very beginning, think about the fact that we should have a meeting evaluation, whatever, evaluation meeting or a realignment meeting, call it as you want, where we will talk about that, where we will come back to everything that we wrote down on that first meeting of a team when it comes to the expectations, and we will see how well we are doing with that. Not to end up in a situation where we've had that first meeting, there was one person that was trying really hard to note everything down just for it to never be opened again. Then what's the point, right? Yeah. But if we do have something like that, then this is an opportunity for us to take that time and go through it. And I think it's important to even go through it when we think that everything is okay, because we might have person X who maybe is struggling and certain expectations of that person are unmet, but they're not speaking up because conflict avoidance, being nice to people, that happens all the time, right? And they might feel that they are not fully that their expectations are not met and their needs are not met there. And maybe that's the opportunity for them to speak up, right? So that's one thing. On the other hand, and at the same time, I would say that if we feel that there are some of them that are unmet, let's not wait until the meeting that we said that would be in 3 months, but maybe let's talk about it as we as we discover it, right? So I think those two approaches go together very well, because one of them approaches the situation where something is urgent, something doesn't work, we see it, let's address it, and the other one, well, maybe does that as well, but additionally gives us an opportunity to address the things that are maybe a bit covered, hidden. At least that's how I would see it.
Yeah, I think it's probably also connected to feedback. Like maybe we start drawing conclusions of things that need to change through feedback sessions, which I think a lot of teams, like, you kind of standardize feedback meetings depends on the duration of the team, but like a month or something. And I think it is, as you brought up, a good opportunity even for smaller things to be resolved, because unless you have dedicated pockets of resolution and communication, you will only have emergency meetings of that nature. And I think,
and if you go from one emergency meeting to another without having any space to breathe and appreciate the fact that maybe we are doing well with those expectations and we are just covering. That's another topic, right? This kind of meeting that we set up and want to have regularly is an opportunity to show gratitude towards others, that they respect you enough to fulfill the expectations that you have given in the beginning.
That is true. The problem solver in me sometimes doesn't see the good things. It's like, okay, we have to resolve this.
Yeah,
But,
right?
but you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Because we're talking about it in a context of those meetings are necessary to address the negative,
yes.
the fact that we are not meeting them. At the same time, why meet them if we never talk about the fact that we meet them, right? So let's do that. Let's be grateful. And I think that is, I can share for myself that it's nice that we have that realization here, because personally, that's something that I wish that I would be doing more. Like, I do appreciate where people work with me and they are working in a way that is aligned with my expectations, but I catch myself on not voicing it enough, and I think that those meetings are a great opportunity to do that. So this is my pledge for all the people that have worked with me, and I haven't voiced it enough. I appreciate you.
Okay, that is very sweet, and that is very true. I think sometimes we get swept into the case of moving forward and doing things, and we don't really take the time to appreciate.
Hustle, right?
Yes. How do I get the most out of others? Sometimes.
How do we get the most out of our situation? Maybe that's better.
Of course.
Yeah, you're right.
Sometimes people don't really want to be told good job, but even so, I think it's just good pointing it out, worth pointing it out. If we're here trying our best, why not appreciate it?
I agree. I think, I don't know, I have that approach for sure when I think many trainers do. When you deliver a session, and this is, okay, maybe this is not expectations, but probably is related one way or another. When you get feedback and you look at the good one, you're just like, all right, let's focus on the things that I can improve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is very true.
So maybe one takeaway from this is to add to our expectations the thing to show it and to show the gratitude for meeting them.
And I think especially for expectations, it means more, to me, sometimes, because that means that someone cares about what's important to me enough to make an effort there.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. The same way I try to do for the people I work with. It means a lot. But now we're going to the exact opposite of what happens maybe when there's, despite the better efforts of people in the team, there's just some things and some expectations, let's say, and needs, essentially, that will never be met. Or that just don't get met the exact way you would want them to. What do you do then? Or what should you, whatever you prefer to answer?
Can you give me an example of an expectation or need that would never be met?
I can give a simple one. Let's say that I really like people being on time. And there's someone that is never on time, and no matter how many times I might ask or explain that it's just courtesy, it's important to me, they just never are. Because there's things that people just cannot fix, so, or might not want to change about their behavior. How do you, make peace with it? Yeah. Or what do you do with it? Maybe you don't want to make peace with it. I don't know. Spoil it.
That's a tough one. Because if you go through that over and over again and it doesn't get solved, what can you do about that? I think the worst thing that you could do, first of all, is to never talk about it. And, for example, if it's a meeting where a person is always late, and not voicing it will make you hold a grudge towards that person without them knowing. Or them realizing after a few of such occurrences that something is wrong because you, Nasia, are rude to me, but you're not saying that because of the fact that I failed your expectation, but I wasn't aware, right? So that's a simple case where someone might not be aware, and we should talk about it, right? And I think that often this helps. Like we are getting slowly into the scenario of, okay, what happens if a need is unmet? But I think the majority of the problems with the expectations that we have in the teams is that if they are unmet, we don't talk about it, and we just continue with our collaboration, thinking that that person is not perfect, that they messed up, and I have to go through that project with a team that is not as good as I wish, even though it would be if we just started talking. And I think this happens over and over, and I think that many of us can say that we were in this situation where we didn't speak up early enough about that. I for sure was. So I'm saying that it's important, even though I for sure didn't do it properly many times in the past.
Yeah.
And then your question, to try to get more into your question, was what happens if it doesn't get better, right? If we talk about it, if we evaluate it, what happens if it doesn't get better? Was that's your question?
Yes.
Oof. I think...
Well, what would you advise someone to do? I don't mean as if there's a concrete universal answer, of course.
Yeah. There's not for sure. I will say it depends. No, I think that when such situation happens, we are getting more into the theory of conflict resolution than actual expectations, right? So what are we doing at this certain situation? Sometimes we might talk about it and it might get better, but sometimes there's probably a need for us to... there's a need for our need not to be as strong, if I may say it this way, right?
I was going to say, picking your battle is one of the things. Okay, how important is every bit of your expectations? Yeah.
If this is a situation that makes our work hard, then how can we adjust our work in order to go around it somehow and not to have to be exposed to that too much? And I'm not saying to do that in the beginning when we just realize that some expectation is unmet and we are not trying to talk about it. We are just, going around it. For example...
Oskar is giving tips on how to avoid conflict.
Yeah. Nasia is being late to meetings, so now when I will be taking tasks, I will be super careful not to work with her ever. That's not the point, right? We try to resolve it, and if it fails, we can try to adjust our work so that we would not go into that negativity so much. Because in the end, it's also important to deliver what we are working on, right? Because this also brings not only the fact that we deliver the project, but it also brings other expectations to being met and for us to be a good team, right? So that's one thing that I consider quite extreme, but I guess sometimes there might be a need for that to happen. But that doesn't mean making yourself not work with that person at all. But if we have certain operations that require us to be on time because we do a lot of the things on the meetings, perhaps we could work around it to do more things async or to rearrange the agenda so that we could talk at first about other things.
I think you make a good point that this case can be extreme. And of course we're not advocating for someone to completely avoid addressing it. It was more of a scenario of what happens if you've already tried to address it. I was thinking that in the cases where I might have spoken with someone for advice about such a situation, the advice is mostly also to kind of take a step back and slightly detach from the things. Okay, your expectations might not be met, but how important, not how important expectations are, but kind of slightly removing the emotional charge from everything and just focusing on the things that you do get out of what you're into. The project that you're into and what actually does go well, and to focus more on that. I think maybe gratitude is again the key.
Yes, and I think before we get to that situation that we just described, right, to work around it somehow and leaving that single expectation unmet, I think there's plenty of things that we can do before, not only by simply talking, but by including some mediators in the process, because sometimes it's very refreshing to have someone from the outside to come in and maybe run some meeting and allow us to talk. I think that third person perspective in the matter is more important than you could think of. And then also just to add here, if that person is not meeting that expectation that we agreed on, perhaps there's something happening in their life at the moment that is making them unable to do so. And perhaps they are not feeling as comfortable to just state it out loud. So I think the aspect of empathy is also super important, because I think that is tied very closely to how we approach relationship with people, communication. It's all connected. But if we are there to judge, we will fail, because that person failed my expectations. We talked about it. They didn't say much, but they kept failing. So what if instead we are curious in order to find out, are you okay? Yeah. Maybe you are not managing because something bad is happening. Maybe you have to, I don't know, go to a doctor every time we have a meeting, and you just are too shy to admit it for some reason, and you are getting late, but you will not say it to us. Yeah, so then if we talk about it, we are getting closer to the aspect of us working as a team and not towards the project goal, which is also important, not to just work. There are so many nuances here. But yeah, for sure, before we get to any kind of extreme results, a little bit of empathy and curiosity is, I think, an important ingredient of that path.
Yes. And I think, like, also with the expectation, it's not like you say them once and then just expect everything to happen perfectly forever. It's just your opportunity to outline what you would want from others, but then as you go, as you said, for example, when I have someone in the team that might not be doing something consistently, of course, the first thing to do isn't to just say, hey, we had this expectation, what's happening? Why are you not doing it? The first question is like, hey, is there something we can help with? Like, how can the team help you do that more easily? Like, is there something blocking you? I think that's how we normally approach it. So it is also worth pointing out, like, even though we are setting expectations as a means to communicate what we would want from one another, it doesn't mean that this is where we stop taking action in order to create the team and the team dynamic, which is like a constant thing anyway.
Yes. And related to that, I think, to make it a bit meta, since you asked in the beginning what is one of the expectations that is important to be said in the beginning, is, I think, every single time we are starting some collaboration, we should not expect that all the expectations will be always fulfilled, because we are not always on a happy path where there are no rough corners. Yeah. If we want to grow and achieve something, there will be difficulties, and they will make us go through some ups and downs. So let's never expect that everything will be always only with flying colors, let's say.
True. Okay, so far we spoke about how to set expectations, what expectations are, how to come up with your own and understand, let's say, what it is that you would want out of others and out of yourself when working with them. How to approach getting your expectations or needs met, and maybe in extreme cases, what if they're not met? Do you have any final thoughts on that topic, maybe? Something we can take away from it?
Yeah, if we think about all the things that we said and that you very nicely summarized, I think it would be good to have them in our brains next time we are actually approaching this subject. Just to circle back to what I was saying in the beginning as well, is that I've had at least those thoughts where I was thinking that, hey, this is just another bullet of things that we do in the beginning. I hope that what we were discussing today makes us remember that this is actually a very important piece of that. And I think that what I would for sure recommend for everyone who is listening, but also for myself next time it happens, is to not just go on that meeting and say what you think that you might probably expect, but actually take at least 5 minutes to reflect on how your previous collaborations went. We often say that the moments that were kind of bad or negative stick in our minds in a way, from collaborations.
They do inform a lot of my expectation for the next collaborations, and then they end up being completely irrelevant to the new people.
Yeah, sometimes yes, but sometimes they may be important, and maybe we learned a lesson based on our previous collaboration that this is actually way more important to me than I had thought before. So now I will be able to say that. And from this collaboration that I'm approaching now, I will learn, again, next thing about myself or next thing about group dynamics or other people, that I will be able to put it out there. So I think, expectations, okay, important to share, but upgrading them each time is a sign of your own personal growth as well. Let's keep that in mind.
Updating them, not creating. That is a nice thought and interesting one. So be more intentional about your communicating your expectations. Maybe don't only think of them during the meeting. Maybe think of them before the meeting when you set the expectations, and reflect on actually what it is that you want out of others, not just the standard. Because it is true, it is a sign of growth, or at least something that happens to most people, that when you finish a collaboration, you have new areas where you identify things that are important to you that you didn't really think of before.
Yeah.
And how to translate that into expectations. All right, thank you. So, thank you, Oskar, for joining us today and for this interesting and thoughtful and sometimes abstract, sometimes specific discussion on expectations, which is a topic that is important or has touched all of us at some point during our collaborations. So thank you for your time, and thank you everyone for joining us in this episode. We do hope you enjoyed it and that you have some little action points in your mind that you might want to do in the future.
Thank you very much. I think it was a very nice conversation, and I would for sure love to come back here at some point to talk about other things. And if someone is thinking about that, I think it's a great experience. And I hope that we'll be able to expect more people to show up in those episodes. I will for sure be looking forward to that. Hit that button, hit the ring so that you could get notifications when new episodes are up. And please put down in the comments what you would do in those situations. Peace out.
Goodbye.
Bye.